The Holocaust is neither an Ashkenazi nor a Sephardic tragedy. It is a Jewish tragedy, and most importantly, it is the greatest human tragedy. In the Nazi scheme, no distinctions were made between Ashkenazim and Sephardim. All Jews were targeted for annihilation. However, there's an often overlooked chapter of the Holocaust which very few people are aware of. It is the Holocaust profoundly affected the Sephardic Jewish communities of the Balkans, North Africa, and the Middle East. Germany and its collaborators all but obliterated the European Sephardic population. 80% of the Sephardic European population were annihilated during the war. This translates to over 200,000 Sephardim who perished in the Holocaust, shattering the small but precious Sephardic Jewish communities of Europe. All of the centers of Sephardic life in Central and Eastern Central Europe were affected by the Holocaust. Some were completely destroyed. Tragically, Salonika, the greatest of Sephardic culture and life in Europe, known as the Jerusalem of the Balkans, was practically emptied of its Jews. In France, Italy, and Holland, where the Sephardic Jewish communities were a minority within a minority, each community suffered a similar fate as the rest of the Jewish population during that time. The ancestor of the Sephardim who escaped the Inquisition and survived the expulsion from Spain in 1492 had managed to begin again, build communities, and flourish as Sephardic Jews in Europe. But after the Holocaust, those Sephardic Jewish communities were no more. What the expulsion and the Inquisition could not accomplish throughout centuries of horrors to the Jews, the Nazis succeeded in accomplishing in just a few short years. To a large degree, the great Sephardic culture was destroyed together with almost all of its living centers. Both the body and spirit of those small Sephardic communities in Europe were equally crushed by the Holocaust, but never their faith in the Almighty. Although the story of the Sephardim has seldom been told after the Holocaust, there are some significant and indeed unique stories that should be told. Here are just a few examples. Sephardim were sent as Auschwitz prisoners to clean up and rebuild the destroyed Warsaw Ghetto. The Greek Sephardim initiated and were part of the failed revolt here in Birkenau on October 6, 1944. Sephardim were the main workforce here in Auschwitz-Birkenau beginning in the spring of 1943. 14-year-old Salonikal Jaco Maestro knew how to speak German, and as a prisoner, he was appointed as a translator. He used his position to coordinate the daily labor assignment for 16,000 Jewish laborers in Auschwitz, where he was able to exempt the sick and weak from labor, as well as many women, thereby saving many Jewish lives. Salonikal boxer Jaco Razon coordinated boxing in the Buna camp known as Auschwitz III. He saved hundreds of inmates from starvation by smuggling 25-liter soup barrels on a daily basis from the Nazis' kitchen to give out extra portions to Jewish inmates. 1/4 of the 400 medical experiments on victims in Auschwitz-Birkenau were performed on Salonika and other Greek Jews. They were helpless victims of cancer, implantation, sadistic experiments performed on twins, castration, freezing, and other horrors. Sephardim like the Yugoslavians Estrella Ovadia, Victor Meshulam, and Moshe Piade, and the Greeks Lazaros Azaria, Julia Bibi, Sarika Yehoshua, and Captain Yitzhak Moshe Kitsos were nationally recognized for their contribution to the anti-German struggle and liberation. Of course, this is just a partial list of the so many Sephardim who suffered through the Holocaust and fought against it, many until their death. As a Sephardic Jew with ancestry dating back to the Spanish Inquisition, it is both personally and professionally a tremendous honor for me to have been invited to light this torch representing Sephardic Jewry. Today, I light this torch in the memory of the more than 60,000 Sephardim from Salonika who were deported to Auschwitz between March 14th and August 17th, 1943, only of which a handful have survived. I light this torch for our lost Sephardim in Croatia and Serbia, where local collaborators were eager to rid the area of Jews during the final solution. I light this torch for the massacred Sephardim of Bulgaria, who were used as a strategic commodity and traded for political gains by the Nazis. I light this torch in memory of the 7,000 Sephardim from Sarajevo, the 7,000 from Thrace, the thousands from Albania, Romania, and Hungary, the 2,200 from the island of Rhodes, 2,000 from Corfu, 300 from Crete, and 300 from Zante, all of whom perished in the Holocaust. I light this torch for the 179 Iraqi Jews who were killed on June 1st, 1941, during the episode known as the Farhud, which was inspired by Nazi propaganda in Iraq. During this time, Iraqi Jewish women were raped, babies were smashed or thrown into wells in front of their parents, pregnant women were mutilated, and Sifrei Torah were burnt and desecrated. I light this torch for the Sephardic Jews of Italian-held Libya, where forced labor caused a high toll of fatalities and deportations to Europe's death camps. I light this torch for the Jews of Morocco and other French colonies, where Vichy forces began implementing racial laws, confiscation, and isolation. I light this torch for the Sephardim of Algeria and Tunisia, where Jews were herded into forced labor camps, notorious for harshness, as well as their deportation to death camps in Europe, where they were murdered. And as a Sephardic Jew, it is also my honor to light this torch for our dear survivors, who so valiantly made it through this dark and most cruel period in history. Despite their unspeakable and horrific circumstances, they kept their faith in the Almighty and in humanity. I am proud to say that since the end of the Holocaust, the Sephardic Jews have established and strengthened new communities all over the world, including Israel, making up over 50% of its population. The Sephardic Jews have prospered wherever they have settled and continue to preserve the beautiful and most colorful traditions and customs of the golden age of the Sephardim in Spain. It is now the 75th anniversary since the beginning of the war and the 72nd anniversary since the final solution was declared against our people. Yet, we Jews are still here, for the Almighty has sworn that for as long as He shall remain God, so too the war against evil shall continue. Ki yad al kesya milchama ladonai ba'amalek midor dor, and the eternity of the Jewish people shall always remain. We shall prevail and we shall continue, as we recently proclaimed in the Haggadah, Bechol dor vador omdim alenu lechalotenu ve'akadosh baruch hu matzilenu miyadam. In every generation, they rise against us to annihilate us, and the Holy One, blessed be He, will save us from their hands. Thank you. By the way.